Hello everyone, welcome to Agile Mauritius. So it is our ninth meetup event already. Okay, so I am Acteur Juman and with the other members of Agile Mauritius group. So we have Jeremy Flo, Danusha Gokul, Roy Dutton, Harold Campbell and Delphine Venkatasamy. We would like to thank you very much for joining us this morning or afternoon for some of you. So today I will co-facilitate the session with Jeremy. So hi Jeremy, how are you doing?
Hi Actor, I'm doing great, and you?
Great, thank you.
Good. Happy to be here for this session. Happy to host with you and welcome to Donna also.
Cool, thank you. So before we proceed further, let me share with you some guidelines for the session tips. So kindly ensure that you are on mute when the speaker will be talking. We will have a Q&A at the end of the session where you will have the opportunity to ask your questions. And anytime during the session, if you have any questions, you can also use the chat window. And finally, as a reminder, please note that this session will be recorded and will be shared afterwards in our various channels and YouTube channel. So today we are pleased to welcome our speaker, Donna Lee, who will be talking about taming weekly issues with inquiry. Hi Donna, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me in your Agile Mauritius group.
So thank you, Donna. So I shall start with a quick bio of yourself. So as everyone may have read already on our various channels. So Donna is from Manila, Philippines. She is a certified team coach and a human systems dynamics professional. She is currently working in Tokyo, Japan. And she has 10 years Agile experience as Scrum Master, Agile coach, and 7 years in software engineering. And without any further delay, Donna, I shall hand over to you because I don't think our friends here are here to listen to me. And over to you, Donna.
Okay, thank you very much, Akhtar. So let me just share my screen again. So can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so thank you very much for coming and thank you for having me again. So this session is about taming wicked issues with inquiry. And since Akhtar already gave me an introduction, but yeah, so born in the Philippines, living in Japan, certified team coach, human systems dynamics professional. Outside of Agile and work, I do like surfing. So I heard there's good surfing places in Mauritius, so I should go. I also meditate, been meditating for 2.5 years, and I really like food. And I also do some yoga. And I'm also a human being who is a constant work in progress. So also for this session, but Akhtar and Jeremy already said so. Type the name, country that you are from. And if you'd like, what are you curious about this session today? So if you want to speak, you can use chat. If you have questions, use the chat, and I'll also be watching the chat from my presentation. So maybe some of the things we may talk about is a little private. So maybe we'll be sharing some issues. So consider this as a private space. So you can share your own stories, but not the stories of others. My presentation is free for use. You can use it and share it as you want with permission. And if you are new to human systems dynamics, this is the first time you've heard it, don't worry. So we use something called pattern logic. And if you have any questions, I will take them after the session. So you can type them in the chat so you don't forget them. Okay, so today I'll be introducing human systems dynamics, which I will call HSD from here on. Something about pattern logic and complex adaptive systems, wicked issues, inquiry, and adaptive action. And as a group, we'll try something called the power of questions, and we will close. So I will try to finish the session and the activity so that we have enough time for questions. Okay. So before we begin, I just like to ask everyone to be silent for a moment. It's the middle of the day in Mauritius. So just sit and relax and pause and breathe. So this is a nice change of pace. And just take in this moment. Okay. Right. So let me tell you something about human systems dynamics. So it's an institute created by Glenda O. Young. So maybe you've heard of her, maybe you're not. So she's very focused in the field of complexity science. And HSD offers mindset, methods, and models for people to actually make sense of patterns and issues that emerge when people work or play together in groups or in families and organizations and communities. So it brings ideas from complexity sciences and applies them to everyday problems to create adaptive capacity to deal with, complex and very uncertain issues in our world today. So there's actually 800 HSD professionals around the world. I am from Japan or Philippines, depends on where you come from. And we have been spanning across different industries and skills like education, health services, org development, coaching, and agile software development. So notable HSD professionals in agile sphere, in the agile world are Lisa Atkins, Esther Derby, Diana Larson, and Michael Spade. So HSD actually created the vision for 2051. So they're thinking of way, way, way far off into the future, and they created this in 2019. So December 2019, going towards 2020. And they didn't realize how much this vision actually impacts what will come later, which, as we all knew, the COVID pandemic actually started. And it became so relevant that, that it actually kind of worked also in the present moment instead of just 2051. So let me just read it. So people everywhere thrive because we see patterns clearly. We seek to understand and act with courage to transform turbulence and uncertainty into possibility for all. So when we work in complexity and uncertainty, we use something called simple rules, which is a very small set of guidelines to help our interactions and influence, the people, not really in a bad way, but the systems that we work in. So the guiding principles of HSD is first standing in inquiry. So when things are complex and uncertain and answers are not good enough, then our inquiry should actually be stronger. We find energy in difference because difference is tension. Tension creates change. And the key to actually changing is to find the differences that we see. So when we actually understand and influence the differences in the system, then we can spark change. So we like to say this as the differences that make a difference. We zoom in and out because sometimes things that happen on a local level, like on a very small level, can be replicated in a higher level and vice versa. The analogy I like to use is see the trees and see the forest. So you zoom in to see the very specific things inside the system or the pattern, or you zoom out to actually see what is significant in the overall like system. We connect through stories and impact because stories help let us see things in new ways and different perspectives. When we hear different stories, we get inspired by it, and learning from our impact, like connecting through our impact, which means that we see the actions, the results that we made, if they're like useful or not, if they're effective or not, can help us improve continuously as well. We search for what is true and useful because in the world today where there is so much information, so much things going on, that we need to see what is not just true, but also what is fit for the current moment, because some things may be true, but they're not particularly useful. So we call this fit for function. And lastly, we celebrate life. So as things are uncertain, we need to support each other as a group, as a community, as a family, as an organization, to actually help each other to bring all these possibilities together. Okay. So some overview of the key concepts that we'll be talking about today is what is the world of pattern-based action? So what is the power of questions? And now what can shift on how we see, understand, and influence our work and even our life. Okay. So let me first tell some differences between formal and pattern logic. So formal logic, when you look at things in a formal logic kind of way, it means that there are problems to solve. You think the future is predictable. We rely on the answers or from our experts, from the evidence that we receive, that the rules are always constant. We rely on our, competencies. Things are in silos and very consistent. I don't know if this sounds very familiar to you guys. But then we look at things from a pattern logic perspective, then it's not really problems, but it's more of patterns we see, things that are happening, and we need to kind of unstick them or kind of change them a little bit, because in this side, the future is unknowable. We don't really know what's going to happen. We rely more on inquiry or asking questions. We look at things based on what is observable and go from there. The rules are always changing. We need to strengthen our adaptive capacity. We look at things through networks and then so on. So if we use formal logic, we actually seek stability, harmony, predictability, discipline, consensus, success. So success means stability, and when you're unstable, it means that you're failing. It means that you're looking for one sure thing. You want to know all the answers. We want to be in control, like visions and plans are set in stone. We try to minimize risks and we try to reduce differences as much as possible. So if you think about it, this is how kind of waterfall looks like, or traditional software like practices looks like. They think things are very like, unchanging and very fixed. But from pattern logic, we actually seek change, and it's very open-ended. We try to learn and apply things in real time. We're open to exploring new things, and it's a little experimental, so we actually don't know. So we want to try something, but we don't know if it's going to succeed or fail. We actually go through action, like adaptive action. So we just keep doing things iteratively and adaptively. We look at different perspectives of people, and there's always some sort of movement, like things are always changing. And this means that we are actually open to what is possible. Like we don't know everything. We don't know all the answers, and we are kind of comfortable with it. And we are comfortable that, okay, I don't know yet, but I can start with a small step or action to do. And we actually changed the process to fit new requirement, and we support diversity. So this sounds like very, very similar to how Agile principles and manifestos, like the Agile principle and the Agile manifesto says, because there's an assumption that all human systems, so whether me, you and your partner, you and your friend, you and your family, you and your team, you and your organization, are all something called complex. We are all in a complex adaptive system. So if you're not familiar with this term, it's a group of like semi-autonomous agents interact with each other. They create some sort of pattern and then influences the future interaction. So me as a human being, I have emotional triggers. I have my weird physical habits. I have my own biases and narratives. And then it creates my personality, the personality, which means how I interact with people. In a team, diverse members interact with each other over time, and then they create their own patterns of success and failure, and then influences, the behavior of the members of the team. Same with family. And in an organization, like a bigger scale, individual teams, leaders, and departments interact in different ways to actually generate patterns that create culture, how the organization performs, how they profit, and interestingly also how they fail. So this is something called complex adaptive system. And because it's semi-autonomous agents, it's not particularly predictable sometimes. Something called wicked issues emerge. So wicked issues are issues without a clear solution. It's not a yes, no, right, wrong answer. So it's generated in a complex system where boundaries are very open and limitless. There's many interdependent variables. Think, how do we change culture of an organization? Relationships are non-linear. It's not like A to B to C, like I interact with X and Y and Z, and then we all interact with each other, with other people. And unfortunately, it's impossible, or fortunately, it depends. It's impossible to solve because there's no stopping condition. Remember the term, like, do agile transformations really finish, right? Probably not. So it's repeating, but never exactly. So not sure if, for example, I've been through like 4 or 5 different companies as an agile coach, and I said, I've seen this problem before. But in a different context, in a different like situation. There's many ways to like go and solve the problem, but not really one particular solution is sufficient. There's many different perspectives of the issue, and all are true depending on who you talk to. And the patterns appear at very different scales. So from team to leads to organization or something else. So some samples of wicked issues are team performance and empowerment, agile and digital transformations, organizational development. If you look at more worldwide or community-based, it will be racism, social injustice or social justice, then the COVID pandemic, right? So every country dealt with the COVID pandemic in its own way, and there's not really one right solution. Everyone kind of did it, and it kind of just, iteratively changed over time. So others will be climate change, the healthcare system, the government, and so on. So just a summary. So wicked issues, many levels, many stakeholders, massive interdependencies, repeating but never exactly, no root cause or not one root cause. It can't be solved, but I think, or definitely, it can be influenced. So how do we influence our wicked issues? It's something called inquiry and adaptive action. So if you remember, the first simple rule in HSD is to stand in inquiry. So when you stand in inquiry, there's also like 4 simple guides to stand in inquiry. I feel as Agile coaches or Scrum Masters or Agile practitioners, this is actually also a very good guide for us to stand when we are with our teams or when we are facilitating. We turn judgment into curiosity. We try to take our disagreements and turn it into a shared exploration. What can we do together? Turn the defensiveness that you have inside when you're very self-aware, like, why am I feeling like this, into self-reflection. And the assumptions that we instantly create because of, our biases or narratives, and we try to turn them into questions. So together with standing in inquiry, we do something called adaptive action. So adaptive action is a way for people to see order and help deal with the chaos that is currently going on with them. So it starts with what. So what is, you try to see what's happening. So what are the current patterns? What do you observe? What is the research? So what, pretty much what. Next is so what. You try to understand and create options. So what are the effects? What is influencing this? What are the tensions? What is important? So what options do we have? So what does success look like now? And lastly is now what, which means that it will lead you to action. So what can you influence? So now what will we do? Now what will we measure or communicate? And now what? So if you see this, and if you're familiar with liberating structures W3, so they're kind of same and different. So liberating structures is what you do inside a workshop. Adaptive action is something that you can practice in your daily life. And you do it iteratively in these 3 steps. So they're very small chunks. So it's like you pause and say, okay, what's happening? So what does it mean for me? What is important? And now what do I do? And you try to do it, many, many times, repeat indefinitely. So when you combine inquiry and adaptive action, then it's something called the power of questions. So this is an activity that we'll be trying to do today. So what is power of questions? It's a very simple and fast process. We'll probably try to do it in 10 minutes. So it operationalizes shared inquiry. It can be done individually if you want to, or as a group, which we will be trying to do today. You can do it in person with your team if you're already going to the office, or virtually as what we will be doing now. And you or anyone can do it within a team that is very familiar to them. Yes, that's correct, Harold. So it's very familiar to them, like your team, your family, or someone very, like unknown. So for example, this time, I'm not familiar with you, but maybe as a group, you kind of all know each other. So that's quite interesting. So one very interesting story I heard from the founder, Glenda Ouyang, is she did this in a plane with a random stranger beside her. But maybe that's not very safe right now because of COVID, but she did that before COVID. So that was a very interesting story. Okay, so let's try it. I'll try to explain the rules and let me know if you have any questions. So what? One person in the session will share a wicked issue if they're comfortable. If not, I can share my own wicked issue. So if it's a bit long, we can shorten it to 3 to 5 sentences. So what? While the person like sits, all the other participants will start to ask questions. So you stand in inquiry. And instead of the usual like pattern where the person answers the question, the person will just sit and listen to all the questions that are being, asked without answering. They can write it down or something, but no answer. So the questions are open-ended. So what, how, why, depends. It's not disguised advice. So what if you do X or what if you do Y? So please no questions like that. And if possible, beyond the knowledge of the asker. So a question that you really don't know the answer. And after a few minutes, so what will happen is you can voice the question. Since this call is recorded, you can also put it in the chat so that the person will be able to see the questions later. And and then after the 10 minutes, the person who shared the wicked issue will consider the next wise action. So not really like, okay, I create a 5-year plan for something. It's just the next small step, something short-term, something very reasonable, promising, and within your control. Okay, any questions before we start? Let me stop sharing for the moment.
I don't see any questions in the chat also. Let's see. Any question, tips? No question there.
Okay, then does anyone have a wicked issue that they would like to share safely within the group?
No, I don't see anyone. I think they want you to shoot.
It's a different experience, and I think if not, then I can share mine, and you can all help me in my wicked issue by giving me, the gift of your questions. So my wicked issue is that I don't like performance evaluations. I don't think people like performance evaluation. And the performance evaluation is coming up. And we now have a new business partner in HR that is kind of helping us like, improve the performance evaluation of the company. So how my wicked issue is like, how do I, as an agile coach, like help, make the performance evaluation like fair and fair for like the entire company? Because I don't know. So I'll type my question, I'll type my issue in the chat.
And do now we start typing our questions also?
Not yet. So I'll just type my issue so that you have a reference. and then I'll tell you when to start. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
okay. Okay, so how do I, as an agile coach, help support making the evaluation process fair and painless? Okay, so I will be quiet. You can start typing questions into the chat. I will watch the time. And if you'd like to also unmute and ask your question directly, then that's also okay. All right.
So Dina, related to your question, we are going to ask you questions on the SWOT.
Yes.
Or it's okay.
Any kind of question, like if you think, if an evaluation process is a color, what would it be? I don't know. So be as creative as you want with the questions. That will help me get a different perspective. There are no right or wrong questions.
Dina, you're on mute if you're.
I have to be on mute. Okay, so 2 more minutes. And anyone who has a last question, or if you want to keep putting questions, then please do so. Okay. Last 1 minute. Okay. We can stop with here. Why is this important to you as a coach? So usually this is actually done with 2 people. So I would call out your name and you would, say the question out loud. But I actually forgot how overwhelming it feels when you receive all these questions. So, but thank you so much. So my favorite is probably the Jesus question with the disciples. So thank you for all of that. And it made me realize, so one thing that also kind of landed on me was, why is this important for me? Because, and why did something happen to me previous evaluation? Well, something really did. And that's why I want it to be different for people. And also the benchmark for measuring fairness and pain, and what training you can give to the managers, because actually last year there was not much guidance on how to give the evaluation. And I think my next wise action is to speak to the business partner, our HR, and kind of bring also these questions forward to her. So that's within my control. It's reasonable. It's promising. It also has the short-term response. So thank you for for joining me in this activity. So let me share my screen again. So as you reflect as participants also, right? So what did you hear? So what surprised you? What did you learn? And now what might you do to unstick your own pattern? Okay, so before we go to questions, I'll just do small introduction on sessions like this. So this is actually this is called an inquiry session. So there's one that's called Inquiries the Answer. It happens in Americas and Europe. So this happens every day. So they do this activity every day, 10 a.m. Central, which is 7 p.m. Mauritius time. So if you'd like to join and see how it's being run like every day, then you can do so. There's also one in Portuguese. If you speak Portuguese, then you can contact Dennis for that. And I used to host the Asia version. So that happens 8:30 Japan time, which is like 5:30 Mauritius. So you can join the meetup to know the next session. I had to stop it temporarily. And if you want to know about like the other HSD practices, I have the links here. I'll share the slides. And if you want to learn more about HSD, then these are all the information that you can check. So no, absolute no pressure. And now what will your next wise action be? So thank you very much. And I am open to answering any questions.
Do you have any questions for Dina? You have all these questions to answer now, Dina, that are in the chat. Anyone, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions directly.
So I wanted to just find out, after you have all these questions, what is then your next step? What do you do with them? How do you move forward from the questions you have?
So based from the questions, as I mentioned, you can create a small action. So so my next action is to talk to the HR business partner again and actually discuss with her some of the questions I actually saw in this session. So how to make it fair, what would be the metrics of it. So that would be my next action. What will happen to it, I don't know, which means that I have to do a next adaptive action to actually check. So as I said, it's not like I know the solution to everything, but it just gives me one step to move forward. Other examples in inquiry sessions that we have hosted, some felt they were overwhelmed and then their next action is to just think about it more. So they want to use these questions to actually think about it more. And that is already enough for a next wise action. And then based on that, you ask, okay, so what do these questions mean? So what is important? Why do I need more time to think about it? And then you create a next now what? So they're actually very small and very rapid cycles. So mine is just to talk to the HR business partner again, to actually like clarify some of the concerns that I have for the next like evaluation cycle, or maybe to even propose to her to not have one. So to, to have that conversation with her. What's the result of that action? I don't know yet. I have to go do it and see what will happen. And then I plan my next now what.
So I have a question, Jenna. Yes. So basically the technique is for you to ask powerful questions again and again and clear it out until you find out how you would proceed.
Yes, that's one way to do it. And the interesting thing is you don't answer. So you just kind of let all of it settle. Why? Because then it doesn't, it helps you build your own capacity to try to create action to move forward, right? It helps that person create their own action moving forward. So that's the important part. We're used to, as experts, we're used to giving advice and I'm used to doing that too. So this just helps the person also like think of their own action to move forward. I really like the questions I got today. So I forgot how overwhelming it feels to be sitting and all the questions landing. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Duna, just to confirm, it's like sometimes you yourself, myself, I'm not aware of the various challenges or the various things that might be behind these issues. Mm-hmm. So it's like getting the help of other people to like be able to self-brainstorm on it to find out new things that I myself might not have been considering. And this will help me to build a better solution or come up with something better. That's it.
Yes, so it helps you broaden your perspective, right? So when we are stuck with an issue that we can't seem to find a solution, when you just go ask someone like, hey, can you just ask me like the most random things? And I think when I did the same session, someone asked me like, if your issue was a song, what would it be? And I thought of it's a very old song. It's like 1998 Bone Thugs and Harmony War. So I knew that I was not feeling very good. And it opened up like different ways to think about it. So sometimes you say, what if your mother was here, what would she tell you? What? So, yeah, I don't know. So, like you did good. So it's very surprising because sometimes, you know, when you look at it on your own, it's the same as looking at code. Like, why is it not compiling? And then some guy just comes and you're like, hey, there's a semicolon like extra over there. So it's not saying that our problems are the wicked issues are that easy, but to have someone also give you different perspective really helps open up more possibilities for you on how you move forward with it.
Definitely, it's a very nice technique. I did not know about it. Thanks for sharing this.
Yeah. I'm happy if people find it useful. So, thank you. Any other questions? I think it's lunchtime, so people.
Cool. Any other question, Pete, for Duna?
If not, if you have any more and if you want to reach out and ask me anything, you can connect with me through LinkedIn. So I just pasted my profile below. You know, contact me anytime, send me a message, and I'd be happy to answer them agile wise or HSD, anything. So I'm sure people want to go to lunch now. So.
Great. Thank you, Duna. Any final words? Else, maybe Jeremy will wrap up.
Have a great lunch. And you know, I hope you learned something, and it's such a pleasure to meet the people of Agile Mauritius. And thank you, Akhtar, for, you know, patiently like working with me through my schedule. So, and Jeremy, and to Danusha, and to all the like organizers of Agile Mauritius. So many thanks.
Thank you, Duna, for your sharing.
Thanks to you, Duna. Jeremy?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Duna, for this wonderful talk and helping us to understand the power of questions and the power of questioning. And thank you all to all of you who joined us today for our Agile Mauritius meetup. So as a quick reminder, I just posted in the chat, feel free to follow Agile Mauritius for our various channels. Also, feel free to provide us feedback on the session. And if you have questions around the session, also please feel free to reach out. So we are present on LinkedIn, Meetup, YouTube. We also have our website. Please do subscribe so that you can have notifications about our upcoming sessions. I wish you all a very nice lunch ahead for those who are in Mauritius, and to all the others, wishing you a wonderful day ahead. So on this note, thank you everyone for joining us, and again, big thank you to Duna for facilitating today.
Thank you for having me. I also pasted the presentation on the chat, but I can send it again to you, to Akhtar or Jeremy, so that you can post it once you do the, you set the recording on live. So.
Yeah.
Sure, will be
Thank you.
needful, Donna. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you.
nice
Merci.